Ya Allah, shower us with your mercy, Ya Allah, guide us. Greetings, salam, salutations, and our beloved Nabi Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Yes, it is another Friday night, the end of the week, and the beginning of the weekend. Time for us to wind down. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Let's Chat on Radio Ansar with myself, FAIZAL MJ SULEMAN. Engineering for me this evening is Siboniso, and of course, program has been produced jointly by Farzana of Amal and Hajar Kota of Radio Al Ansar. So, our topic for discussion this evening: empowering NPOs, thriving amidst change. Sounds like something that's quite, shall I say, difficult to absorb, but it's quite simple. We're talking about non-profit organizations, or NPOs, playing a crucial role in addressing some of society's most pressing issues. However, in an ever-evolving world, they face unique challenges that require resilience, adaptability, and forward-thinking. From shifts in funding landscapes to technological advancements and changing community needs, NPOs must continuously innovate to remain effective and impactful. Our very special guests this evening are Riza Amra and Farida Lavangi. Riza, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair for joining me on the program this evening.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good evening to the listeners out there as well. I'm not sure whether it's going to be a winding down session Friday evening and to be talking about tax and compliance, but nevertheless, we'll try and do our best to make it as easy as possible.
Inshallah. Farida Lavangi, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you as well, and thank you for joining me on the program this evening.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Like Riza said, it's going to be an interesting evening, I think. It's been a long week for us, so I hope the listeners are going to enjoy what we have to share. And I hope it's not too technical. We're going to try and keep it light, keep it practical, so the listeners out there can follow and understand what we're talking about.
Excellent. Well done. Just to introduce our guests, Riza Amra qualified as a chartered accountant at a Big Four audit firm. Riza has over 19 years experience. 19 years, Riza. Excellent.
And 4 kids later, by the way.
Including the past 14 years dedicated specifically to the NPO sector. He's currently the Director of Risk and Compliance at Turning Point Chartered Accountants, and is also a co-founder of the innovative digital fundraising platform 10 Bucks Only, revolutionizing how NPOs fundraise and manage 18A receipts. As a registered tax practitioner with SARS and a member of the SICAR Eastern Regions Tax Committee, he contributes to and provides valuable insight into practical challenges faced by the NPOs, advocating on behalf of the sector. So, Riza, you seem to be a tax fundy.
Not really. I like to think of myself as more the practical in terms of taking on SARS with the boxing gloves, obviously advocating on behalf of the sector as well. There's obviously more than 275,000 registered non-profit organizations in the country. And what we do find as one of the challenges is that most organizations don't have the skill set or even the advisors that specialize in the sector as well. So yeah, we do have tax specialists in-house at the firm itself, but I wouldn't call myself a specialist, rather someone who's a bit more practical and gets their hands dirty, dealing with SARS face to face.
First is 18 years experience, and it's not dynamite, comes in small packages, yeah. Then displays modesty as well, but excellent. And Farida Lavangi is a highly accomplished chartered accountant and registered auditor with over 20 years of audit experience. She currently serves as the Director of Audit and Reporting at Turning Point Chartered Accountants, is a USAID accredited auditor. You must tell us what is USAID. And registered SARS tax practitioner specializing in the NPO sector. She brings over 8 years of expertise in audit, compliance, risk assessment, financial reporting, and systems reviews for NPOs. She has held a senior managerial position at a Big Four audit firm, served as a senior audit lecturer at one of South Africa's leading universities, and developed numerous training courses for the NPO sector. Farida, I see we've got 2 heavyweights in the studio. Excellent. I think we'll probably become tax experts in the next hour, inshallah. You were supposed to tell us what was the USAID.
So it's United States funding. So the US government, when they provide funding to other organizations and countries across the globe, So there's a handful of auditors that are accredited. You have to undergo a specific training course. And so I'm one of the few in South Africa, and the firm is registered as well. So it's a very niche market.
Excellent. I think let's just start with the, you normally say ladies first, but let's just start with you. Okay, let's leave it ladies first. Farida, let's start with you. I think.
Okay.
What are the key compliance requirements that NPOs in South Africa need to be aware of? Now, Riza, in case you're getting worried, I'll give you an opportunity to answer that question as well, but let Farida go for it.
Okay, so in terms of compliance, it's quite a bit. It's quite daunting if you are a nonprofit and you are in the finance department in an NPO, because there's quite a bit of compliance that you have to have a handle on. There's compliance from SARS, so you could have monthly compliance in the form of employee taxes. So if you've got payroll, which most organizations do, you've got monthly reporting to submit to SARS. You've also got Department of Labor then on a monthly basis. Besides payroll taxes, if you're registered for VAT, then there's also compliance with that aspect with SARS as well. And then the dreaded annual income tax returns. Fortunately for nonprofits that are registered as tax-exempt organizations, it is not as stringent as the normal company income tax returns. So that's SARS on its own. I'm not going to steal Riza's thunder and talk about some of the new SARS developments, which we are going to touch on later today. Then you've also got Department of Labor. So if you've got employees again, besides UIF, you've also got workman's compensation, which is an annual return that has to be done. Then we move on to Department of Social Development, which not all nonprofits will register. We're going to talk about when do you need to register. But if you are registered with the Department of Social Development, then they also have specific compliance requirements, which is you've got to submit to them a report within 9 months of your financial year end. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've missed, Riza. So we've covered SARS, we've covered Department of Labor. And then, yes, there's obviously the statutory requirements. So if you're a company, then CIPC has requirements for you. We're going to talk about beneficial owners later today, but I don't want to give everything away right now. This is just the first question. But yeah, in a nutshell, there is quite a bit. So as somebody who's in finances and in an NPO, it's quite a bit of compliance matters that you need to be on top of. A lot to unpack.
Thank you. I think this is quite a bit.
Now you know why I brought Farida in.
Yes, of course.
She's very covered, so I can just sit down and relax for the rest of the evening.
In fact, I could have just tell Sibani, so he's probably working overtime. Okay. Riza.
But I think Farida's pretty much covered, all of the compliance itself. Just to take it a step back, perhaps, is that, sometimes what we do find is that organizations are unaware of the structure that they're housed in. For instance, you get an organization that wants to register, but the first thing they need to know is the structure within which the activities are undertaken. And just to break it down, in a simple and easy to understand manner, like you'd have a private entity that would be running a business, that business will be run in a PTY Limited. But with regard to a non-profit organization, there's only 3 structures within which they can operate. One would be a non-profit company, a non-profit trust, or voluntary association. So once they've got those structures obviously registered and your founding documents established, this is where the registrations thereafter with SARS or with the Department of Social Development would come in. And in order to maintain their status thereafter, they would need to proceed with the submissions that Farida mentioned as well.
Now, you mentioned 3 structures.
Ji.
Do all of these structures have a similar sort of requirements? Are the liability of these structures, is it the same? Because normally I think when it comes to structures, you then want to protect liability and the directors of these companies personal involvement as well.
So with regard to the structures, it comes down to obviously the organization themselves. There's no specific tax benefits that would flow into a structure that would differentiate one from the other. However, in terms of obviously the founding documents with the non-profit company, you'd have a memorandum of incorporation. With the non-profit trust, you've got your trust deed. And then with the voluntary association, you've got your constitution. Furthermore, you've got separate pieces of legislation that govern each of those entities. You've got the Companies Act, you've got the Trust Properties Control Act, and then the common law. And depending on those pieces of legislation, the requirements would differ in terms of the onus that's on the directors or even the trustees as well.
Interesting. My thoughts right now on the voluntary associations. And I'm just assuming the voluntary associations, the members of this association will probably be personally liable for the acts of the association itself, unlike maybe a company where director is not personally liable. I'm asking. I'm not making a suggestion.
From a voluntary association perspective, I don't think the members itself take liability. It depends on how the constitution, I think, is worded itself and how it's set out legally. But we found that generally from the three, the most administrative one and the most amount of burden on an individual is your companies, because that one is you're governed by the Companies Act, which is legislation that you've got to comply with. And being a director on an NPC, there's a lot more requirements of you and a lot more onus on you as an individual as compared to the other two. I know for trusts, there are certain requirements for you, but your obligations, or you're not personally liable for anything that happens to the organization itself.
Absolutely. Unless you've acted mala fides. I mean,
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Can you then explain the importance of financial reporting for NPOs and how it impacts the operations? And I think, Farida, you indicated to me you want to answer this question.
Yeah, I guess...
indicating, my apologies.
Yeah, it falls under my ambit. So if we just take a step back, nonprofits obviously rely on funding, right? So they rely on donations, be it from the general public or be it from organizations that are funding them, in order for them to actually carry out their activities and their core principles or core values that they want to achieve, right? So, but what we find is that, and we've been working now, Riza's been working in the space a lot longer than me, but in my 8 years that we've been here, and I come at it from an audit angle because I do audits on nonprofits. Most of the time you speak to people and you can see the passion that they have for what they want to do, but their operations or their program activities are running exceptionally. They've got the processes in place because they know this is what they need to achieve. This is what, they've got the funding for. But then when it comes to the finance part of things and the management part of things, that's where things tend to slip, because that's like, the part of the family that you don't want to worry about. You only want to focus on just doing your core work. So, and that's the core financial reporting. So what we found is that most nonprofits itself, they don't have the proper foundations in place for financial reporting, which then comes back to bite them, because if you're not reporting or maintaining proper finances on a month-to-month basis, and we now even say you should be doing a week-to-week basis with some of the technology that's out there, you're not going to be in a position where you're able to know where your money is going as an organization. You may not be able to even pick up if there's any mismanagement of your funds. So in order for an NPO to actually be running, what's the word I'm looking for? To be accountable, to be transparent, they need to have proper financial management processes in place. And that the end result with that is that you will also get, your donors will be more willing to fund you, because they see you as an organization where their money is doing the work that it's supposed to do. It's being managed well. So the importance of financial reporting for an NPO is so significant for their success and for the longevity of the NPO itself.
No, I think it's absolutely vital, and the transparency is absolutely important as well, because it impacts, as you say, on the donors. Riza, how do the various tax-related matters like income tax exemption affect NPOs in South Africa?
I think we must remember that non-profit organizations essentially are an extension of government. And why I would say that is that if you look at the space in which non-profit organizations operate and the activities within which they're involved in, a lot of the time, it would be mandates of any government, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, skills development, poverty alleviation, disaster relief. But obviously, with the limited resources that governments have across the world, that's what's given birth to the non-profit sector itself. So what governments would do is they would obviously now ensure that non-profit organizations have certain tax benefits that are available to them. So they're not impeded in any way whatsoever. And from a South African perspective, this is where your public benefit organization status kicks in. So non-profit organizations would need to apply to the SARS tax exemption unit in order to register as a public benefit organization. Very often, I think organizations are so thrilled at getting the approval themselves as a PBO that they fail to actually go through and have a look at what this really means and go through the clauses within the tax exemption letter that's issued by SARS. And in doing so, we find that organizations don't take full advantage of being registered as a public benefit organization. There seems to be a perception that we exempt, and there's a blanket exemption from all taxes, which isn't the case. It's a partial exemption from income tax. And then there's certain additional tax benefits that flow from there. Benefits like donations tax, transfer duty, capital gains tax. So it can be quite a minefield for non-profit organizations to identify which of those tax benefits they could take advantage of. So to give you an example, for instance, with regard to value-added tax, not all non-profit organizations would qualify for that benefit, for example. So what we do is we encourage organizations to obviously go through and have a look at what that tax exempt status means, because that's merely unlocking the door to the actual tax benefits that are available to them.
Now, how problematic or how easy, I don't want to be negative, how easy is it to register as a PBO? And once you've done that, and that's why I use the word problematic first, once you've done that, to register to get the tax exemption, is it a problematic process?
He's going to hand this over to me.
Yeah, Farida's got plenty of experience with regard to the headaches that we've had. But I think it seems to be mainly post-COVID that it's gotten a lot worse.
So to answer your question, it is quite difficult at the moment when we actually do these PBO applications. Okay, so the process itself is not difficult. Filling out the forms, collating the documents. There is a lot of information that SARS requires, but that process is actually quite seamless. The issue comes in is once the documents are submitted to SARS, that's where the delays come in. So previously we used to give a timeline. We would say 2 to 3 months, and we would follow up with you. But since COVID, like Riza mentioned, it has taken not a little bit longer. It's taken a lot longer, but SARS seems to now have put in some new processes. So we are seeing some changes coming through, but it is a process. You're looking at between maybe 3 to 6 months, if not longer, to get the PBO application, provided it's a seamless, not a very complicated one. I think when you have, especially the Islamic organizations where they're doing both Islamic work and they're doing welfare, normal general welfare work. So there's some complexities that come in there because Islamic work, whilst it might qualify for public benefit organization status, it doesn't qualify for 18A, which is a separate tax benefit that nonprofits have. So I think when we have those complexities coming in, then the process does take a little longer because you have to convince us that this organization is actually doing both. It's doing welfare work for the general public, but it's also doing some Islamic related work.
Thank you for that, Farida. 060-904-1056. You have any questions for our panel? You have any comments on the topic that we're discussing? Please forward your comments, your questions, etc. to us via WhatsApp. There's a message has come through. Salam, love the show. First time from Mariam. Shukran. Thanks for that, Sister Mariam. 060-904-1056. What steps should an NPO take to ensure that they remain compliant with tax regulations? And I'm going to leave this open to the both of you.
Okay, you want me to go first? Okay. So I think the number one step has to be, first of all, I think organizations need to be aware of what are all of the different compliance requirements that's applicable to their organization. So step one has to be that there needs to be an awareness. Step two is once you are aware of all the different regulations affecting your organization, I think from a finance point of view, you need to put in place processes which will allow you to actually meet those requirements with ease. And some of those processes could be your actual financial reporting process itself. I mean, if we're talking about submitting information to SARS on a monthly basis, your accounting system should be able to provide you with that information. And then I think the last part for me would be is that it's all in well knowing what your compliance requirements are. But if nobody is monitoring the deadlines and monitoring that those deadlines are being met, that's another issue for organizations. So for me, it's those three things. I don't know if Riza has more to add to that.
Yeah, I think working in the sector now from 2009, if there's one thing that I've picked up over the years, and it seems to be a common theme, is that ignorance is bliss. And if it's not broken, why fix it? So with regard to that, what I would say is I think education becomes quite critical. We've been commanded to read and to constantly seek knowledge. But with regard to ensuring that your organization is maximizing tax benefits and is taking full advantage of it, for some odd reason, we seem to be reluctant to go out there and take what's being given to us by government. Remember, SARS is not going to come knocking on your door as a non-profit organization and say to you that you haven't taken advantage of being registered for value-added tax, for instance, or you've paid transfer duty on a property purchase when you shouldn't have. The onus is up to the organization. And as a firm, I think this is where we've decided that our capacity building programs become quite critical, because the only way to change mindset is through education, and in terms of empowering organizations with the knowledge and the skills to allow them to then make informed decisions and assess from there in terms of their tax compliance and ensure that they are maximizing tax benefits. So for me, that will be the number one priority, is to ensure that those individuals and stakeholders within your organizations, whether it's the treasurer or whether even if it's the person that's answering the phone, that they know and have the requisite knowledge to be able to respond to a potential donor, for instance, that comes in with a question about 18A receipts, for example. So I think for me, that would be the most important point, is to make sure that your organization is geared and upskilled in terms of these aspects.
Thank you. Farida, you want to add to that?
No, I think Riza's touched on the capacity building, which I think from our experience of working in the sector, that is one of the biggest problems we see, is that there's just a lack of knowledge. And often it comes down to, the people in finance roles are generally they're not qualified, or maybe they've just been there the longest and they've been given the task of managing the finances and ensuring that they are doing all of these submissions, but not really fully understanding why they're doing it, what is supposed to be done. So I think that capacity issue is one of the biggest issues facing the NPO space from a finance and reporting perspective.
Yeah, perhaps just to add on that, Farida, is that what we also find, and it's a challenge again, across the spectrum, is from a South African perspective, there's really not much specialized support to non-profit organizations. Similar to the medical field, where you've got specialists in each area of medicine. And likewise, I think the accounting or the finance and tax profession as well, you do have specialists in each field. But with regard to the non-profit sector, as massive as it is from a South African perspective, we don't find many specialists, whether it's from a legal, a tax, accounting, or even audit perspective. And sometimes it's an injustice to the sector itself.
No, because you need that guidance.
Have to.
And especially these are uncharted waters. So what you rightly said is we all need to be educated. There needs to be a sense of awareness. And did you say there are 175,000 organizations?
I think when we last looked at stats, this was, I think, just around COVID 2019, 2020, there were about 275,000 registered non-profit organizations with the Department of Social Development. Now remember, that registration is voluntary. So not all non-profit organizations go ahead and register with DST, because there's really no tax benefits that flows from there. I think your guess is as good as mine in terms of how big the sector is, because you have informal organizations operating out in rural areas that might not have a formal structure as well. Absolutely.
So do you all embark on any awareness programs? And I know you're going to tell me, well, that's why we're doing this particular show, so we can create that awareness. But this aside, are there any awareness drives or embark upon?
Yes. We partner with various stakeholders, funders in the sector as well, key role players in order to host workshops and webinars. We've been doing that now for close to about 12 years. And these sessions are hosted countrywide in all the major centers. We have gone out to smaller towns as well, towns like Richards Bay, Heberden on the south coast, Randfontein up in Johannesburg, White River in Nelspruit. Okay. So we've traveled the length and breadth of South Africa, obviously trying to get this message across and to change those mindsets. But even then, I think you're still scratching at the surface in terms of reaching all non-profit organizations across the country, because I think, if we are able to get the message to as many organizations as possible, it puts a lesser strain on the limited donor funding that's available. If organizations can maximize their tax benefits, then the donor rand goes the full mile.
Absolutely. Okay, it's time for us to take a break, but before we take a break, the message from our brother Shabir Chauhan. Of course, he's I think head of Amal. Says, Salams FAIZAL, thank you to Riza and Farida for making time available to appear on your program and provide information on a very important topic. Amal, the Association of Muslim Accountants Lawyers, are very grateful for this. We need to ensure that our NGOs are operating at the highest level of governance, whilst contributing to play a meaningful role in addressing social ills in our country. Very informative program, well done, and comes from Brother Shabir Chauhan. Shabir, Jazakallah khair for the sentiments. And of course, yes, we all learn, and we will continue to learn. And I think this is a perfect platform, to sort of educate and create this awareness. So thank you, Shabir, and we'll take a short break. We'll continue on the other side of this.
Call us now on 0861 904 904.
Looking for a day packed with fun and excitement? Come and join Simplex Radio at We Paddle Sherwood this Sunday, June 30th at Sherwood Bowling Club. We have something for everyone. Paddle tournament, amazing giveaways, entertainment, food stalls, jumping castles, gym competitions, hangman, and so much more. Bring your family, bring your friends, and make memories. See you there, 8 a.m. till late. Sherwood Bowling Club, 860 Yansmut Highway, Sherwood.
Hey there, Durban. Get ready for the best winter shopping event. It's time to shop till you drop at the Durban Shopping Fest from the 5th to 7th July. We've got it all, from trendy fashion to jaw-dropping deals. This is the perfect place to be. Picture yourself strolling through aisles of your favorite stores, discovering hidden gems and snagging those must-have items while having a phenomenal variety of the best cuisine waiting for you in our food court. Don't miss out on the Durban Shopping Fest. Join us at Saxony Westwood Mall and let the shopping spree begin. Store bookings now open.
Get ready for the biggest dinosaur experience this holiday. The Jurassic Museum opens at Saxony Westwood Mall Friday the 28th of June to Sunday the 30th of June from 9:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. with over 40 dinosaurs on display. It's a blast for the kids and an experience for the adults with live crocs, reptiles and giant lizards too. Enjoy shopping and delicious food. Mark your calendars 28th to 30th of June at Saxony Westwood Mall. Call 082 757 3535.
Have you heard? Heard what? The latest. Join me, Kelly Ramazani, for a brand new exciting show every Saturday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. for the ultimate guide to navigating the world of careers. We talk about side hustles, unpack careers that are in demand, careers that do not need a degree, job searching, career advancement, personal development, and so much more. Tune in every Saturday, 9 to 10 a.m. to unlock the path of your dream job.
Getting you through your day. Radio Al Ansar.
In order to streamline our operations and ensure your donations reach those in need swiftly and efficiently, the Al Ansar Relief and Welfare has updated banking details for the Lillah and Sadaqah contributions. Bank FNB. Account name Outreach Al Ansar. Account type check account. Account number 63100203081. Branch Florida Road. Your generosity fuels our mission to uplift communities, provide essential aid, and offer hope to those facing adversity. With these new banking details, your donations will continue to make a profound impact on the lives of countless individuals in need. Jazakallah for your continued support, and together we can create positive change and spread compassion far and wide.
Plan your dream holiday with the specialist, World of Travel, as we pride ourselves in offering you the best in Hajj and Umrah. We also offer travel packages to the Middle East, Far East, and many more exotic destinations. Call our professional travel consultants now on 031 20 888 or view our website www.worldoftravel.co.za. Visit us at 44 Crescent Street as memorable journeys begin with World of Travel by Irshad Malik.
WhatsApp us now on 060 904 1056.
You're listening to Let's Chat on Radio Al Ansar with myself, FAIZAL MJ SULEMAN. Our topic for discussion is empowering NPOs, and of course, they are helping them to thrive amidst change. And our special guests are Riza Amra and Farida Lavangi, both highly qualified chartered accountants, tax practitioners, and of course, master auditors too, if I can call them. And and they specialize in the NPO sector as well. Tell me, are there any recent changes in legislation that NPOs should be made aware of?
So I will touch on the one that came about last year, and Lisa, I think, will touch on the one that's just been released this year. So we're going to talk a little bit about grey listing. I think we have a little bit to talk about later on, but basically South Africa got grey listed by the FATF. I'm not going to explain what FATF is, but basically when it got grey listed, they identified that nonprofits could be used as a vehicle for money laundering and terrorist financing. So with that, they've brought about some legislation changes. So the nonprofit organization, so NPO Act was amended, the Trust Property Control Act was amended, and they also introduced a new legislation. But the basic impact is that there's now something called a beneficial owner, ultimate beneficial owner. So previously, prior to grey listing, if you owned shares in something, nobody really knew who the shareholders were of an organization. CIPC didn't require that information. So it was something that was just internal. And now they've said, okay, well, because we worried about money laundering and terrorist financing, we now need to know who are the ultimate beneficial owners for organizations. So from a nonprofit sector, most people would have thought, okay, it's not really applicable because there's no shareholders in a nonprofit, in an NPC. There's nobody really that owns a nonprofit. But they've introduced definitions. So if we're looking at an NPC, if you're a director of an NPC, you're deemed to be a beneficial owner. So you now have to disclose that information to CIPC. If you're a trust, trustees are deemed to be beneficial owners, and now you've got to submit to the master of the High Court. There's a template that has to be uploaded with personal information. And then if you're registered with the Department of Social Development, which we spoke about earlier, they also have certain requirements where you've also got to upload information. But one of the key impact with this change is that if you're an NPO that is doing work outside of South Africa, so you're a South African NPO, you're doing welfare work or you're doing humanitarian work or you're sending money outside of South Africa, previously, you didn't have to register with the Department of Social Development. But when South Africa got grey listed, one of the biggest impacts is that the nonprofit organizations that are doing work outside of the country need to now register with the Departments of Social Development, which is not something that a lot of organizations are aware of. We know quite a few organizations that are doing work outside of South Africa, but they're not registered as NPOs with the Department of Social Development.
Yep.
So obviously there's a lot of compliance requirements that's come about with this. So over and above all the other things that you need to be on top of, this is an additional compliance requirements for organizations with the grey listing. I think Riza is going to talk about the more current one that's been released in this year. So I'm just going to hand over to him.
Yeah, I think one of the big changes that have come through this year is the submissions of the mandatory IT3D returns that nonprofit organizations have obviously to submit to SARS. That's come in last year after, or rather it was actually the follow-up to the new requirements on 18A receipts that were released last year. With these additional fields, the intention is to now ensure that donations made to 18A public benefit organizations are pre-populated on donors' income tax returns. And in order for SARS to be able to do that, the registered 18A PBOs would need to provide certain specific information to SARS in a predefined format, which seems to be a bit of a nightmare at this point in time. The deadline was the 31st of May, but most organizations seem to be pulling their hair out to try and get this over the line. But we are supporting a number of organizations in ensuring that they are able to do so efficiently. And one of the platforms that we've introduced to assist organizations is the $10 only platform, where organizations can actually go in and use a free trial to capture their data and download a data file, which will enable them to actually submit the information to SARS.
So what happens to $10 now? You said it's free, so I'm just wondering.
So the charm is $10 only is a fundraising platform.
Okay.
And it's actually, a little can go a long way. So, we generally have or spend $30 on a cup of coffee. But for some reason or the other, we want or we find donating a bit more difficult and donating regularly. So what we'd like to do is that we want to make donating a habit. And I think that's where the charm of it all has come in, where your $10 is not really going to affect your pocket. And if you can, a minimum of $10, obviously, if you want to donate more to organizations on that platform, you're most welcome to do so. But I think, in the old days, what used to happen is people used to put in their coins in a little jar, and after every couple of months, perhaps go out and give it to an organization, or perhaps even go out and feed. I think that's where the concepts come about, is that little that
goes a long way.
It can go a long way, definitely.
2 WhatsApp messages come through. One comes from a newly elected Member of Parliament, Imran Subrati. Jazakallah to Riza and Farida for unpacking this very relevant topic on behalf of Amal. How does non-compliance by an NPO affect donor funding and donor relationships? Shukran, Imran Subrati, Executive Secretary, Amal. Let's deal with that first.